Hello! And welcome back to Hold On I'm Talking, Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood, and you are listening to our preview of UFC 303, which is headlined not by Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, but is headlined by Alex Pereira versus Jiří Prochazka 2 for the light heavyweight title. Tom Ballum is here, my regular co-host, and it does feel a bit like robbing Peter to pay Paul from the UFC here, taking from one card to cover for another because they didn't build up a proper one before. But here we are, Alex Pereira versus Jiří Prochazka 2, under not ideal circumstances, Tom?
Yeah, that's the problem with this fight, Joe, is it's fantastic. I want to love it. I have loved it in the past. I know what it feels like to love it because we got to see it just back at UFC 300. However, as you say, it feels a little premature.
Definitely.
I'm not sure if Jiří has definitely done enough to warrant it just yet.
Really?
I'd like one more, just one more, bit of space in between, a bit of separation in my mind from him getting, saved by the referee with Pereira mounted on top of him just a few months back. Great fight nonetheless. The other thing, Joe, that I wanted to ask you about is Alex Pereira,
the best,
biggest star in the UFC right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you could do with this man. And I don't know if doing something you've already done with him is the best possible move. I just want to see the best.
Interesting.
Fights, the best story.
Interesting. Okay, hold on. Well, listeners, before we go into our main card preview then, in fact, let's start it now. Me and Tom are about to preview this main card of UFC 303 and tantalizingly set this up for us because we're going to preview this main card, going from the top down to the bottom, starting with the main event. We're going to make picks for each fight. If we get the fighter correct, we get 1 point. And if we get the method correct as well, that's 10 points on offer for both me and Tom. Tom, the defending champion, because he picked Randy Brown. And I meant to, but then I forgot that I'd picked him on the last card. Anyway, let's not get into the semantics. What do you mean here now, Tom? We're starting with the main event. Prochazka gets his rematch against Pereira, trying to reclaim the light heavyweight title. You're saying now that Pereira, there is something out there that's better for him right now. And is it John Jones that you're talking about?
Well, clearly that's not there right now. And no. But there were murmurings about potentially going up to heavyweights. There are heavyweights who would take that fight, and heavyweights that Pereira perhaps could give us reason to think he might beat, and that's pretty intriguing to me, Joe.
Yeah.
That's pretty intriguing. I don't know what happens in the event of a loss to Jiří here to those potential fights.
I actually almost think he could lose and then just move up. Do you know what I mean? Where it's just like, go out there, knock out Pavlovich, and then have a title shot. He could do this.
What a way to
the same thing as what he did at light heavy, where he beat Blachowicz,
lost.
Got the title shot. Yeah, just do the exact same thing. Rinse, repeat with
and moved up on a lost, and I guess that would be the parallel. Yeah, Joe, you're right. You've swung me. You swung me. I just like the momentum. Like he's at full momentum right now, and obviously a loss can check that momentum. And it's also this is a great fight. Something that hopefully you would imagine would still be out there. A little bit further down the line. Maybe
Definitely.
We could have had the opportunity to see other potential matchups at light heavyweight. Of course, not Magomed Ankalaev. I'm not talking about him.
Never Magomed Ankalaev.
Never Magomed Ankalaev. Yeah. In fact, Jiří has confirmed as much. I don't know if you caught,
hilarious.
Caught this.
That was hilarious. Oh, who's he beat? Oh, Johnny Walker. And he was like, come on.
Come on, mate. Be serious.
That was a great
go beat a real fighter, Magomed.
That was such a great insight into like the fighters' mindsets, because they think the same thing as us. Which is like, Johnny Walker, come on. Like, he's hilarious, but that's not a real win.
You know what I think, Joe? You know what I think? I think Rakic or Blachowicz rematch for.
Well, that's the thing about
Ankalaev.
Ankalaev. We will go into this main event, listeners, but as is the way, all roads go through Ankalaev with light heavyweight. He's had out of who are the really good guys he's beaten? He had a draw with Jan Blachowicz, a fight he should have won. Ankalaev should have been the light heavyweight champion, and he fucking spuffed it.
Well, let's be fair to it, because there is a bit of a conspiracy at play. Let's ignore the fact that he won that fight. Really? All right. Okay. Fine.
Did he?
He won 3 rounds of that fight, Joe? Yeah,
I saw the judges give a draw, so that's what I saw, and it kind of actually did feel like that. All right, yeah, he fucking fucked him for 3 rounds. Okay, fine, whatever. But I remember him limping after a bunch of leg kicks, so that's what I remember about that fight.
Yeah, ref could have called it off, to be fair.
Yeah, possibly. Quite possibly. Anyway, Tom, Yuri versus Alex Pereira 2, right? I can say Prochazka, but I just prefer to say Yuri. Rematch for the light heavyweight title. The first fight came last November at Madison Square Garden. What was your main takeaway from that fight? In your mind's eye, your memory, what is your main memory of it?
Well, of course, it's the stoppage, but what led to that stoppage, in my mind, was the leg kicks from Pereira. Leaving Yuri just no room to fight.
Yeah.
Kind of forcing Yuri to fight the fight on Pereira's terms. Yuri going out wanting to prove something in that second round and kind of get it back.
Yep.
Re-establish himself, and not being able to stand at the range that he wanted to, and just getting completely snuffed out coming in, basically.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think my main memory from that is the leg kicks that drew Prochazka in towards Pereira into that left hook. I mean, it's kind of mad actually when you watch that Rakic fight and you see the shots that he ate against Rakic, and this is after being knocked out by Pereira, and then just the shot that Pereira landed on him, where he kind of almost just booped him. You kind of just gave him a bit of a bink on the chin, and then down he went.
Well, fell in, of course. Kind of shot a double leg against the cage, and then Pereira obviously got those elbows in. And there was a bit of a question, wasn't there? Those elbows were hard, they were heavy, they were kind of naked, if you will. Yeah. And Prochazka falls back, and Pereira lands on top, and
it was going one way. It was going.
It had to be stopped.
Yeah.
Yuri's kind of eyes rolled back, and he was not.
It's always the way, though. I'd rather it be a little bit earlier than a little bit late. So, obviously you want to try and find that sweet spot, but I don't blame the ref for that. I know Yuri said in the cage, it was a fair stoppage, but then afterwards sort of walked it back. Which, obviously he's been told, don't fucking say that. You can get a rematch here if you say that was bullshit. Which is obviously the correct thing to do, and he should have done from minute 1 in the cage. Do you know what I want to say? I want to give Yuri a lot more credit for that fight than you do. He was giving Alex a lot of problems out there. He was landing a lot of left hooks on him. He was getting him. Pereira was twitching a lot in that fight. Prochazka was throwing a lot at him, as he usually does, and Pereira was wasn't stable or set on his feet, and he went back to those low calf kicks quite a lot to actually just kind of reset the fight, where he's just Yuri would blitz him. Pereira would kind of be struggling with the sort of footwork or whatever else, and every time that Prochazka tried to go again, he would then throw the calf kick to be all right. It's almost settling him down. He's almost like a dog that he owned, where it was just all right, you calm down, enough of this, yeah, right. You're not going to act like a wild man here. We're doing this on my terms here. But Prochazka, to his credit, did keep actually pressing through all that. I just wonder now, and he even said this, I should have wrestled more in that fight. Because the time that he did,
that was
he had the better of him by quite.
Yeah,
clearly.
Early in the first round, that was. I mean, I feel that when we broke it down last time, we kind of evaluated the fight, and I gave a strong case for Pereira and ended up picking Yuri, and you did the other way around. You gave a strong case for Yuri and ended up picking Pereira.
Yes.
And that's because this is a great matchup. It's very intriguing, and it's hard to see, just how it might unfold. And you're right, ultimately it was it's a challenging fight Yuri's a problem, right? Like
he's
he was getting he's an absolute nightmare for everybody. Like how do you deal with this guy? And I think those fundamentals that Pereira showed, which he's gone on to further, embellish his credentials with that hilarious knockout of Jamahal Hill.
Really swept him out of the division, isn't he? Where it's just like, that guy can never have another title shot. Like, truly.
Yeah, it was a complete humbling.
Talk about a man who needed it, by the way. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, well, in hindsight, he's definitely he's shown that he needed it. Might even need a bit more of it from another gentleman. But
yes.
Yeah. I think it's that classic kind of dilemma again, where you've got the fundamentals versus the chaos, and what happens when they match up. I mean, would you say that's the main change in approach you expect to see going into the fight? Like Pereira will more or less fight the same, or do you think he might make some adaptations based on the first fight?
Pereira will fight the same. I just think that maybe he will. I don't know. I think he might even just like double down on the calf kicks. Like I think he'll throw even more of them potentially. I mean, if Yuri has learned how to check a calf kick, then it might make the fight a bit more interesting. But I somewhat doubt it. I don't think the Bushido spirit will allow him to do that. So I think he's going to keep ploughing on with that sort of like, well, what would this man in Japan do in the 16th century? He would do this. Okay, well, I'll do that then. So. Which is
the honourable thing is to take the leg kick going.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Where he's just like, well, he threw it, so I might as well take it. And it's just like, that's not how this works, but all right, yeah.
I mean, he applied that strategy to great success against Rakic, but this is not.
This is not Rakic. No, Rakic. That fight when he crushed Prochazka with that elbow, he just stepped in and cracked him with. I mean, he was landing clean on him with fundamentally strong striking. Fundamentally, Alexander Rakic put on a really good performance against Yuri Prochazka. It just didn't mean anything because Yuri was just like, "Well, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm gonna get you." Like,
that was an amazing fight.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was amazing.
You just got swept up in the Yuri hurricane,
That's kind of what you want as well. Where it's a guy going, "I'm doing well against this guy." It's just like, no, you don't want to do well. You want to be like, I don't know how you even beat this guy, to be honest. I mean, other than
and that's what was striking about that fight is like Rakic is physicality. Like Prochazka is such a physical fighter, such a strong, imposing figure. But Rakic is like an uber soldier, ubermensch. And like basically, Prochazka's physicality just what didn't appear to be enough. But then we got to the question of durability, resilience, and thriving under pressure and in the chaos. And wow, yeah.
Do you think the moment got to Rakic
very impressive,
where he was just like UFC 300, big bonus on the line? If I can knock this guy out or have a great fight, whatever. Because if I was Rakic's coach, I'm like, you're going to wrestle that guy whether you like it or not. Get him on the ground and get the win.
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think the storm was just strengthening. The winds were blowing, louder and more fiercely, and by late in the fight,
that's why, I kind of want to push back on your thing of like, oh, does Yuri deserve it? Who cares? Like the guy is like literally money every single time.
Yeah, but you mentioned it yourself. It's just a few weeks out. They haven't had that much. You because of the caliber of the fight, you want them fully prepared.
Yeah,
and that's like it will. Well, I don't know. I guess we're talking about two very special guys, but I've got it in my head that, I'm thinking about, for example, Volkanovski taking the fight against Makhachev,
right.
12 days notice, getting kicked in the head.
But they're both taking it on 12 days notice. They're both taking it
on. Yeah, but I'm just thinking about how I think about the man who loses this fight after that, and I love both of these guys, really, is what I'm saying.
In a way, you kind of want Prochazka to win so there can be a trilogy.
Yes, I did wonder that, yeah.
That's actually okay. If I was to book it in a pro wrestling sense, then I'd have Prochazka win, do the trilogy at the end of the year, just go straight into a trilogy, and then, in line.
But hold on,
and then allow another. But then that gives you more time to have rankings to sort of like build up to give like Carlos Ulberg a chance to try and get into a title shot, or you know what I mean? Like you got to give some of these guys.
Shame he didn't make it onto the
Oh
card.
god, yeah, he was lined up for a title shot, wasn't he? That guy. Like they were like, you're gonna knock Jamal Hill out, and then it was just like, knock Anthony Smith out if you want, and then literally, mate, you can turn him on one leg, you'd beat him. Like, come on.
Anthony Smith has got a very different opponent too. We'll cover that shortly. Yeah. But you've seen this ongoing teasing of a potential fight between Pereira and Smith, right?
Well, I think
in the embedded series,
I actually don't think so.
In the embedded series, I think Pereira's just doing this for fun, but in the embedded series, it shows him playing the UFC game, and his son is Anthony Smith. And he's playing himself, and he absolutely mollywops him.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Pereira just finds that bemusing that matchup might get made.
Well, he's a funny guy, Pereira. Like he's he's
funnier than Yuri. Yuri is.
I don't think Yuri has that concept of humor, to be honest. But yeah, Pereira is genuinely very funny. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one to analyse beforehand, where it's like, well, I know both of them fought on the same card, and they probably took a similar. Well, Pereira took no damage in his fight, whereas Prochazka did. But Pereira had a couple broken toes, which is funny considering the original main event we had that we'll talk about later. But yeah, I don't know. It is this sort of frustrating thing to know, well, what can these guys really add to their arsenal going into this fight? And are we essentially just going to see the same thing again as last one? I mean, I do think Prochazka, if he's going to be sensible, which he's probably not going to be, he should wrestle for the first 2 rounds of this fight and not throw a single punch and just take Pereira down, wear on him, and then the hurricane can build up a Prochazka if he wants to go down that road of the fight of going to start putting it on him. But then again, Pereira carries that power late. You saw it with Adesanya in the first title fight. Is that the only time he's gone to a 5th round? He went the distance with Blachowicz at light heavy.
Yeah, but that was three rounds, wasn't it? It's incredible statistic going around about the percentage of finishes these guys have amassed between them. It could be very exciting going later in the fight. We could have an absolute barnstorming fight.
That's what I want.
If that was the case.
That
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want the 5 round bloody war. I just don't think it's going to happen.
If that did happen, it sounds like you favour Prochazka the longer the fight goes on.
I don't think so. I don't know. To be honest, I actually don't know. I think I know what would happen early. It would be the first fight, but if it went the distance, I actually don't know, because I do think Pereira could. I don't know. He can land on you late, and when he's flurrying on you, it's the technique never changes with Pereira. It's. He doesn't really throw long shots. He doesn't catch you at the end of a jab or at the end of a right hand. He kind of likes his arms kind of not to fully extend. It's all kind of 80% extension at most. So his hand's always close to his body, and he can always sort of come back and defend himself if you counter him, or if he lands and then you immediately counter from there. He's never overextended. So, I don't think the technique would fall apart for Pereira. Just also because that kickboxing record as well. That's the thing that people forget about. His MMA career is only this, but it's how many kickboxing fights does that guy have? It's more than any MMA fighter's had of an MMA career. So that experience in there would help him, and those guys that he fought. So again, that's the other thing with Pereira is that whereas Yuri is all movement and his hands are low and his head's ducking in and he's moving around and he's just throwing things at you. Pereira is kind of he's within this bubble. Do you know what I mean? A bubble of, he's almost got a force field around him, and it's just his hands will only ever go that far. And his kicks, he doesn't have big sweeping kicks. He doesn't really throw head kicks, to be honest, does he? It's all
no.
It's all to the calf. Because again, he just wants to debilitate you so that you can't move, or it forces you to come in, and then the left hand is there for you.
Well, as you say, for a head kick, you have to fully open up. You have to expose yourself more, come out of that shell. And I think you make a good point there, really, because when the fighters are both so deadly, it can come down to who has the better defense.
For sure.
and Yuri's defense is his offense, isn't it? It's part of his whole aura. There is none. There is none.
Yeah,
it's an absolute firefight. Really incredible, and people are always saying, well, he's going to get caught, and he just hasn't really been caught in his career until he met Alex Pereira last time out. Alex Pereira created that scenario, so I think the betting man, the smart man, has to rest on the same outcome. And that is what I've done, Joe. I've picked Alex Pereira in this fight.
You finally picked Alex Pereira.
The curse, it could be. I've done it. Yeah, Alex Pereira by KO.
Wow. Now, listeners, I don't know if you're aware of this. Tom has never picked Alex Pereira to win a fight in the UFC. He's never...
I refuse to stand in front of the train any longer, Joe.
You do know he's going to lose.
I will join. Yeah, what have I done?
Yeah, I've picked the same, Pereira by knockout. It's a shame. It's a shame, because I would have liked this later in the year. A bit more seasoning, a bit more build-up, a bit more weirdness. Yidi talking about this black magic and all that he says Pereira uses. Sure, okay, whatever, Yidi. But it has to be Pereira.
Well, you want to see some black magic, Joe? I have put down the true curse there.
Yeah.
If I have relented, I can't help but feel like I've set the man up. Let's be real.
Have you ever relented like that before? Have you ever had a guy where you've finally had to pick them? You've never picked Bilal?
Anthony Smith, but we'll get onto that later.
Oh, really? Oh, Jesus.
No, perhaps. But Bilal.
You've never picked him?
You've
never picked
him.
Me. No.
Well, I'm not picking him next time out. It's no spoilers.
Anyway, yeah, Pereira by knockout. I think it's the only sensible thing. And then at that stage, I'm like, fucking, what would he do then? Aspinall, it would have to be. It would have to be Aspinall.
Oh my God, Joe. Oh my
End
God.
of the year. Can you imagine if he becomes the first 3-weight champion?
I mean, I think you've just revealed your pick for Blades Aspinall right there.
I'm leaning towards it. I need to have a bit more research on it, but...
So I have the opposite trait with Curtis Blades, where I always
you
pick
have
that
to.
man.
He's the best,
and
I love him.
He is, and then he gets chinned by Derek Lewis or Francis Ngannou.
Do you know
twice,
what? The Derek Lewis one still pisses me off, because it was like he was winning the fight. He was winning the fight on the feet, and you know what? Everyone else saw that. It was just like, oh, that's how you beat that guy. Just kick him at range, kick him in the stomach. Cyril Gane watched that and just like, oh, okay, I can beat that guy. Just, so upsetting. Curtis should have had a title shot after that. Bless him. Anyway, listeners, co-main event made at the same time as this new main event, and my word, that's all I've got to say about this. Brian Ortega is back in less than a year. This is amazing. We never see him back this quickly. And he's fighting Diego Lopez. I mean, my word. What's up with Brian? How much money have they offered him to do this? Like, this is insane.
Well, I was regaling you with Ortega's anecdote of how this fight actually got made, and he'd run into some of the bigwigs at the UFC, maybe in the PI or I don't know, maybe just crossing paths somewhere in LA. Yeah. And Hunter Campbell said, "Oh, Brian, you're looking well. Looking all right. You're all right, my son."
Yeah.
I'm well, Hunter. So, I hope the family's okay. All right. Bye bye. And next day he gets a call from Hunter. How about a fight 2 weeks' notice against Diego Lopez, the on-rushing killer? And Brian Ortega only goes and says yes. So I'm all here for it. I love that.
I love it as well. I'm actually going to be intrigued to see if Ortega can make weight, because he's not a small featherweight, this guy. He's always struggled with it. So that'll be an interesting part. I mean, we talked about this before recording. Go on, Tom.
Well, he's making a distinction on his size this time. He says it's all muscle, Joe. He's been really, he's been cutting out those unhealthy carbs. He stopped snacking, and he's been eating some protein. So
he said he was going to move up to lightweight, because he said the title picture at featherweight is so tied up that he said that there's not a chance for him to get a shot in, because Max is probably going to face Topuria next, and then you got the Volkanovski rematch. If Max wins, then you got Volkanovski 4. If Volk loses to Topuria, then you've got Topuria Max. So it's just like, you know what, I was quite impressed that Brian actually showed a bit of foresight to be like, right, I'm not going to get a title shot anytime soon. However, I'm more of the inclination of just like wipe out a contender to make yourself like absolutely undeniable. Like I think Brian Ortega can beat Movsar Evloev. Like I think that is. Yeah, I really do. I really do.
Wow,
What,
Joe, you just come out with a huge statement like that.
Evloev is going to wrestle that guy? Like, do you think if he wrestles Ortega, like Ortega's snatched up many a sub from awkward positions, and I mean, I'd love to see that fight just in general. But, beat Evloev, and I'd say that you're pretty much there. But he's facing Diego Lopez. That's an oncoming Russian bull that is coming up the rankings, and this is big. I think this is a real like. It kind of reminds me of Saint-Denis Poirier, where it's just like beat this guy and you're up there.
I was about to say it, just that it's the same kind of thing. You got a lot of kind of lower hanging fruit that Ortega could have been fighting, but here he is taking on a man who's really, he's coming off the back of 3 first-round finishes in 90 seconds or less. He's shown a huge diversity in his striking, Diego Lopez. He's got the best haircut in the sport, and he's here for it. So it's a really, really surprising one. Now the story of Brian Ortega's career is that this goes horribly for him. Let's be honest. That is his path. He's almost doomed to that, but he's still only 33. And you mentioned the jiu-jitsu, Joe.
Yeah.
Does Diego Lopez want to roll with him? I'd
love to see it. That's Diego Lopez's whole thing, is that he's the jiu-jitsu coach for Alexa Grasso and for Brandon Moreno as well. He was the jiu-jitsu coach for a long time with those guys. He was the one who came up with the game plan for Grasso to beat Shevchenko the first time. So this is a smart, technically gifted fighter, who is going up against Ortega. Now, Ortega, I will say, if he's going to win this fight, he's going to be losing a lot of it, as is the Brian Ortega way. The only fight he's ever truly dominated was the Zombie one, and that was from that spin elbow, and Zombie was sort of.
He looked amazing.
He was so.
He
slick.
looked amazing. Though.
He was so slick in that one, and it was just
wow.
Yeah, it was fantastic. But you remember the Yair one? Before the fight starts, he's sort of like jumping on the spot and he rolls his ankle like, Brian, don't do this to me. And then he loses that first round, and then he comes back and absolutely fucking schools Yair. Just mashes him into the ground. Hideous top pressure that he got on him. That was the thing that really impressed me, was actually that side of it from Ortega. But I think these two on the feet, they're both reckless. I mean, we talked about Lopez before with the sort of like when he knocked out Sabatini with the weird standing hammer fist thing to sort of like knock him out. Chase him down, mullet flowing. The fucking emo sweep as well was flowing as well as he was chasing him down. Beautiful haircut this guy's got.
Well, because there was a question going into that one with the jiu-jitsu matchup. Sabatini obviously a specialist in his own right, and Diego Lopez found the way to deal with it. Yeah. Just standing clubbing, hammer fist.
Yeah.
So Brian Ortega might get a little bit of that. I just think this is a really fun fight.
Yeah.
Joe, we're only going to get 3 rounds, aren't we?
Yeah, it's only 3 rounds.
That's tragic.
I know.
I know. I could bit of meat on this bone.
I feel like Diego Lopez now has to be a 5-round fighter for me. Where it's just like, give me every potential second of this guy. Same for Ortega. Like, they're just all action all the time. But, the fact is that they're both kind of reckless on the feet, that they're both technically maybe not, super slick. But then on the jiu-jitsu side of things, they are going to be, like, high level. I mean, to be honest, in terms of the jiu-jitsu sense, I don't think we're going to see a lot of it. It'll be mostly, like, scrambles if we ever do see it. Which would be exciting to see, at the very least. I'm not expecting this level, but, Saruki and Gamrot, that sort of like when they fought and they had that sort of like scrambly affair. That was your fight of the year, wasn't it? Like that was.
It was so stunning because, of course, Saruki was making his debut in the sport, and he's not even from Dagestan, so I wasn't expecting all that kind of.
He was already ranked. What are you talking about?
The Sarukian
Gamrot.
Makachev.
No, Gamrot.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I enjoyed that a lot, Joe. Yeah, that was great. That was 5 rounds in the Apex. No, I thought you were talking about.
Oh, that's amazing.
The first time we saw, Saruki and Makachev, because that fight is on my mind. Because we're going to see that again on the other side of their careers where they're at now. No, I just want to pick you up on one thing.
Yeah.
You're not expecting that level.
Oh, I don't know.
You said because these guys are really, really good.
I know,
you
but
kind
it's
of
just
said
that,
it.
like, Sarukin and Gamrot are wrestler-based, aren't they? And these two are jiu-jitsu-based. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, but then the stakes are even higher. I mean, I'm thinking about Diego Lopez and Evloev and the scrambles we got in there. You know, the transitions.
That's true.
That was so exciting.
That's true.
It was so exciting.
I forgot about that fight.
Yeah, and that's of course Diego Lopez's debut in the UFC. You know when that was, Joe?
That was last year, wasn't it?
This time last year, May 6th.
Wow.
Came in and stole our hearts.
I got to say, if he wins on Saturday, and by the way, my pick is Diego Lopez by decision. If he wins on Saturday, title shot. Fuck everyone else off. Get Diego Lopez in for a title shot. Like, I'm sorry, man. I need to see it. Lopez versus Topuria? Woo!
I mean, you can basically at this point say this man's name with anyone, and I'm because he's just so game. He really gets after it.
I think he can make boring fighters exciting. Probably. Wait, what
don't...
about this? Diego Lopez versus Aljamain Sterling. How about that?
That's it's a tall task for Aljamain to snuff out and make boring. That is that's a fight.
That is a
featherweight
fight.
Suddenly got pretty exciting again.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
all it took was our favourite getting clocked by a disrespectful young Georgian.
Yes,
and it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, historically, I think featherweight has been like the best division in the UFC. You know,
but it's been dormant. It's been like weird and clogged with the Holloway and Volkanovski duopoly.
Yeah, just that they were so dominant, and the fact that they were both dominant over everyone else. You know, it was,
and that Volkanovski was ultimately dominant over Holloway.
Yeah.
It just like a lot of the questions had been answered, but now
there's some new questions that are out there, and the answer is Diego Lopez. But my question for you, Tom, is what's your pick for this fight?
First, you got to walk me through that, Joe. How does Diego win this fight by decision? What does it look like?
It's just carnage, man. 15 minutes of just all action all the time. I think he's going to land cleaner shots on Ortega. I think
Ortega's bloodied up then on the feet.
Of course, they're both going to be bloodied up. Like, this is going to be like, the thing is that Ortega is like, he's a little bit more. In terms of like his striking, he's almost like, I don't want to say like, I'm trying to think of the right word for him. He's not quite a counter striker, but he's more like, he's not going to start the engagement. He'll wait sometimes, and he'll feel his way into a fight. Whereas Lopez doesn't really do that, and I think Lopez is under the sort of like manifesto of like, well, this is who I am now. I'm like Michael Chandler, but I'm good. That's the difference between them.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to introduce a couple of statistics from Diego Lopez's.
What is strikes landed per minute? Is it going to be mental? Is it over 8?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's his significant strike defense resting at 38%.
What? Oh my!
He's got 38% significant strike defense, and he's absorbing nearly 5 strikes per minute.
Oh my god!
Yeah, like that touch paper. He's landing at 3.22 strikes a minute. So,
striking differential is in the negative, right?
It's significantly negative.
I wonder if
the striking defense.
I wonder if the Evloev fight sort of swayed that heavily.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time on the mat getting tapped by.
He had a lot of submission attacks in that fight, and it was mostly Evloev. Yeah, okay, fine, fair enough.
And the stats never capture it. Now, I've got an even greater statistic for you here because I just flicked over to Brian Ortega. Significant strikes per minute. This is courtesy of one Max Blessed Holloway.
Insane.
It's 6.54.
Oh.
Coming up against a 4 strikes landed per minute, so that's an even bigger differential for you now. But the striking defense is at 50%.
I mean, I will say, fucking hell, that tells you the level of whooping that Holloway put on him for it to be that high. I will say for Brian, like, that's pretty high, like 4. I mean, it's obviously the absorbing is so high because of Volkanovski and Holloway. Holloway obviously to a greater degree. Yeah. Anyway, what's your pick?
Ortega.
By?
Yes. by submission.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I can see it. I can see it. Joe, I really think Brian Ortega is just absolutely deadly in certain positions. I mean, the best in the UFC.
He's a wily old dog now as well. And you saw it in that year when he had to come through a lot of awkward stuff. He was just like, I'm not getting done here. I'm gonna do this guy.
And that's all. He's also like tough, resilient. Obviously, we know he can take a beating. And I just think that Diego Lopes will lean on his jiu-jitsu. He'll expect to escape positions, and they'll exchange, and he'll find himself in a position that he just isn't getting out of. And I really, Ortega has some of the meanest chokes, some of the best submissions we've seen.
And you have to be Volkanovski level good to get out of it, and to have coaching by a guy like Craig Jones to get out of it.
Well, and also have the neck structure of Volkanovski, which is quite unique in the sport.
Golem.
The neck to head to that ratio is a bit unusual, let's say, and Diego Lopes certainly doesn't have it. So I think I could see a variety of opportunities, and I trust Ortega to find them. Right,
now let's talk about this next fight. Your fight of the night coming up: Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze at light heavyweight. Yeah, this is odd. So it was supposed to be Jamal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. Roundtree pops for PEDs. So then we got Ulberg versus... Carlos Ulberg stepped in and to face Jamal Hill. Okay. Hill pulls out. He gets a very serious injury. Apparently he's going to be out for a very long time. Okay, cool. Anthony Smith steps in to face Carlos Ulberg. Fantastic. Crush that can, Carlos. On you go. And then Carlos Ulberg pulls out. So then we have middleweight Roman Dolidze moving up to light heavyweight to now face Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, who I believe here, is he on a 1-fight win streak, Tom?
Yep. Petrino, yep.
And now he is talking about, oh God, yeah, when Petrino sort of like took him down into the choke. Yeah, lovely.
Unbelievable.
Right. Smith is talking about getting a title shot. He feels like he's destined to face Pereira for the title. I don't know, man. I think he might be able to sneak in there. There's weird stuff going on in that division. No one's making a declarative sort of statement to have to be the next contender. Even Yiri, to your point earlier. Make the case then for me that Anthony Smith should not get a title shot, because I'm struggling to see this here.
Well, we discussed Ankalaev's recent wins and why they were not enough. Right, there was one Johnny Smith,
Johnny Smith. Oh my God,
mythical fighter.
Oh my God.
What a jabron that fella would be.
Johnny Walker and Anthony Smith would be.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. What a jabron that fella would be. No, look, we said that Ankalaev's not good enough after beating Walker.
No.
Anthony Smith lost to Johnny Walker 1 year ago, all right?
Do you remember that?
He then proceeds to stump...
Do you remember that fight when he starts talking to him in the cage? He's just like, you're not going to take this from my family. And Johnny's like, what? What are you saying? He couldn't hear him. He was like, you all right? Like, he was like, you okay? Obviously not.
He's not okay.
No, he's not okay.
He's not okay because he fumbled to a split decision victory over Ryan Spann next. Joe, this is just terrible.
So, Roman Dolidze is moving up from middleweight to light heavyweight. Obviously, this is a short notice. I think Dolidze was he's a middleweight. He's not a light heavyweight. So fair play. I think he's going to be a bit...
He's a big lad.
He's big, but I don't think he's going to be big enough for light heavy. I mean, maybe I could be proven wrong. Roman Dolidze, he's got some nasty subs. Remember the one of Hermansson, where he caught Hermansson in a dodgy position. He almost had him like in a calf slicer. It's horrible.
Yeah, and then knocked him out, didn't he? Wasn't it ground and pound?
It was ground and pound from there. But he used the subs from the sub attack to get him from there. But violent finishes. Remember the one of Phil Hawes? That was horrendous, where Hawes was injured. Yes. Now, since then, he's lost 2 decisions, one to Vettori and one to Imavov. The Imavov one was pretty clear. The Vettori one was also clear as well. That was the one where I picked Dolidze to win that, because I thought Vettori was on the way down. But
yeah, you always pick Vettori. It's like plates. It's the rules.
7 out of 10 every single time. But Dolidze's moving up. Nasty single punches. nasty grappling as well. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it for Roman. I'm feeling it for big man Delize.
Yeah. Love me some Roman Delize. Yeah. He's a great guy. He's a great fighter. He's very, very dangerous. And yeah, he's kind of bashed his head against some very, very good guys there in Vettori and Imavov. I think he's a handful. And yeah, I watched him on the embedded go off into the mountains and light a fire, and and I thought, oh, Smith, mate, you're in trouble here. I really think so. Now look, I have to be a bit careful about what I say because I talked all sorts of trash about Anthony Smith going into the Petrino fight.
As did I.
Yeah,
I mean, you to a hateful degree, but it was. It was.
Yeah, and I don't hate the man. In fact, I quite enjoyed his commentary at times.
Same.
Yeah.
He's got good insight. He's got an interesting career. He can offer insight of a guy who just kept at it, who just would not stop until he had the career that he wanted to. And that's admirable, and he had a fantastic run if you consider everything about that guy. Not super athletic, not super technical, just absolutely tough as shit. And he's just I'm going to have this career. I'm going to be a fighter. And he did it. And he had a world title shot against John Jones. Yeah. And he could have become the world champion. He literally, if he just oh no, I can't fight on, he would have been the world champion. He should have done that. He should have got that nice big paycheck for the next fight. But
the thing is when I agree, I just can't anytime he faces anyone half decent,
yeah,
he gets snuffed out, unless they have some glaring weakness.
Yeah, I mean, Delize's weakness is that he doesn't set up shots. He just loves just winging a big old shot.
He does, yeah, he certainly does. But his you talk about him being small. I think his physicality could be too much for Anthony Smith.
I guess Smith's on the end of his career, though, isn't he? And Delize's kind of in the middle of it. I mean, I'm going to pick Roman Delize by knockout. I think that I just think Smith's at the end, and I think fighting a middleweight who's feeling fresh, who hasn't fought for a while, not cutting any weight. I think that could factor in. I mean, that was Anthony Smith. Remember, he was the middleweight who moved up to light heavyweight. I'm going to stop cutting weight, and he found success that way. Could be the same thing for Delize. Anthony Smith, who did he beat? Was it Rashad Evans was his first one at light heavy?
Yeah, he was clearing out all the old boys when he had
that could be
Shogun Rua.
Could be Roman now.
Yeah.
So yeah, Delize by knockout.
Delize by knockout here too, Joe.
Sorry, Anthony.
It's the circle of life, my brother.
Right, Mayra Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson at women's bantamweight. Bueno Silva stunk the place out against Pennington last time in the title fight.
Oh God, yeah.
Deary me.
I'd blocked that one out, Joe, and you've just brought it all.
Sorry, man.
All coming back.
Man.
Yeah.
Anyway, I picked Silva by decision. I guess I don't know.
I picked a sub. Yeah.
Right, fair enough. Now,
does she do some ground stuff? Some of that ground high.
She does ground stuff. Yeah.
She's a Brazilian, isn't she?
Yeah.
Submission.
Okay, cool. Now, this is the fight you were really interested in. Ian Machado Gary faces Michael Venom Page. Now, Tom, you didn't watch Bellator. You weren't really a Bellator guy, apart from the freak show fights. Ken Shamrock versus what's his face? I almost said Bigfoot Silver. No, Kimbo Slice. That's what I'm talking about. That's what you tuned in for. The good stuff. He faces Ian Gary. Now, you didn't watch Bellator, so you didn't really have much of a sort of framework for MVP, I feel like. He came in, faced Kevin Holland, and you were so blown away by what you saw by Michael Venom Page that you're like, there's no one can beat this man. He is
Hold on. Hold on. Let's start qualifying and shutting that down right there. But I don't want to. I will say he blew me away. It was amazing. I'd never seen anything like that. And Kevin Holland had never seen anything like that either. Let me tell you, he did not want to be in there anymore.
He's moved up to middleweight again.
Right. Yeah, what is this man doing to me? Why can't I stop it?
Yeah.
And why won't he just stand still so I can fight him?
Yeah.
Because strikes were coming from places he's never seen at a speed that Kevin Holland has never encountered. Now, Kevin Holland is an accurate, crisp, fast striker. And he really looked like he was lost out there. Really lost. It was just absolutely striking to see. He was hitting him with spinning back elbows, crazy overhands from across the other side of the octagon. He redefined the concept of distance to Kevin Holland.
Yeah, the distance is
and
totally different.
Kevin's like, where do I stand? Like, what? I'm on one end of the cage and you're on the other side. What is happening? Like, can I stand here? What about if I move over there?
Yeah.
And he was completely lost. So you're right, Joe. It was an absolute revelation for me. I loved it. However, I didn't necessarily say he will go on to beat every single fighter who's ever been born.
Now, Ian Machado Gary is stepping up against his will. He doesn't want to fight MVP. He says he doesn't see much of a point. He's below him in the rankings. All right, fine, fair enough. I just don't see anyone ahead of him for him to fight at this current point who's available. Who, by the way, is going to draw enough eyes to you as well. Like, this is potentially a layup here for Gary in terms of a promotional sense of, like, we brought in this really exciting striker who, has blown fans away with his first fight. And this is a chance for you now to get that name, get that performance, and also get rid of that Jeff Neal performance. That sort of like skirting on the outside, counter-striking performance. Now, admittedly, if Ian Gary comes out like that against Michael Venom Page, we could be on for a stinker of a fight. Ian Gary, to win this fight, has to engage in clinch fighting. He has to get him in the clinch. He has to hold him there in the clinch, and he has to do that. Now, obviously, MVP's got very long arms, so he can frame off on him. He's got very awkwardly angled arms. Okay, it's going to be very uncomfortable to get in there. But for me, I think if Ian Gary's going to win this fight, he has to clinch up with him. He also has to just chop away at the legs, like Cejudo versus Cruz, sort of like just swiping leg kicks. Take out as much as you can with each one. Pump the hands, sweeping leg kicks. Now, admittedly, Michael Venom Page will be able to check quite a lot of those. But I think that's realistic.
Well, I'm sat here, Joe. I'm nodding my head, and I'm thinking that all sounds very nice. Yes,
yeah, of course.
Good stuff. Yep. And then I just think about Ian Gary, and I just think that none of that's happening, mate.
Do you not think so?
None of that's happening. He wants to go and prove that he's the better striker. Even he wants to go and prove that he's the flashier striker. So he wants to show the big artillery, and he wants to kind of blow MVP away. He wants to stand and trade with him. He wants to show that he's faster, younger, fresher, more powerful, all of those things. I just think that's the ego of the man. Great fighter as he's proven to be thus far. Yes, it wasn't an exhilarating performance against Jeff Neal. Well, some people felt that. I thought he fought really well. I thought it was
I
fine.
I thought
he won the fight.
Yeah, it was solid, but just like I thought, like in terms of their styles matching up, it just made for not the best fight.
No, but
I mean, you could say
I don't
know. I don't mind.
I mean, it depends on how we're gonna frame it. Really, Jeff Neal's a problem. Jeff Neal put Shavkat Rakhmonov to work. Like, he carries a threat, and Gary managed that threat. So yeah, maybe not the most exhilarating, not a highlight reel finish in there, but it's, come on, can't always have a highlight reel. Here in this fight, how can it not be just like a point exchange? I just don't know how Gary's style, when it intersects with MVP, how can it not be shot for shot?
I mean, I don't know.
How can it not be who's more accurate, who lands? I
mean, it depends on. I mean, I think Gary has shown adjustments over time with each person he's fought. Like, he doesn't fight exactly the same way, in the same way that, like, Michael Venom Page fights that way no matter what. So Gary has shown that, his ability to either control the tempo of the fight or be a bit more of a counter striker. I would be interested to see if he could actually maybe factor in a bit of wrestling in there. I think that has to be part of the game plan. It has to. Otherwise, it's just not going to work at all. I mean, Kevin Holland got Michael Venom Page down. at one stage, so it is doable.
Sure.
I also think Gary's a more intelligent fighter than Kevin Holland as well. I think he's, Kevin Holland almost kind of like quit on himself in there as well. I don't think Gary would do that.
Well, you've got to think about that kind of slightly the backgrounds of the fighters coming in.
Yeah.
Like Ian Gary knows who MVP is. He knows what he represents. He knows what to expect.
Course, yeah.
And I think Kevin Holland had a little bit of this kind of like UFC centric worldview.
Yeah.
And as he said when he came out of the first round, like, oh my God, I just didn't expect him to be so fast.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right.
Whereas you're right that Gary will expect that.
Do you want to give us a pick?
Yeah, MVP by decision.
I'm taking Ian Gary by decision. I'm going to take Ian Gary. I think it's going to be close. I know. It's how is he going to do it? And it's like I've seen MVP lose, and I've seen him lose to guys that aren't as good as Ian Gary. So, I'm a little bit like not so taken by MVP, but I do love him. I think he's exciting and all that, but just I've seen the flaws in the system. Right. Is there anything on the prelims you want to talk about, or should we just go into the new stuff?
I could give a slight nod to Joe Pyfer coming back off his loss, but it's I'm glad he's been
humbled,
kicked off the main card for a bit.
Been humbled a bit. Peyton Talbot looks exciting in the bantamweight. He's looks like he's the next one on the come up, so that'll be interesting to see. He's already calling out the big names, so I'm liking that. Peyton Talbot, his debut, he absolutely pieced up some Paul Jabroni. Like, it was just every part of his body just dismantled. It was barbaric. Right, news. Let's start with something nice. Bobby Knuckles, son. Oh my days, he absolutely took out the trash with Ikram Aliskerov. So yeah, the UFC's first fight card in Saudi Arabia. Supposed to be headlined by Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev gets sick. Aliskerov steps in. Ikram Aliskerov, that is. And Whittaker absolutely dismantled him. Got the read on him immediately. Just like waiting. Fake pumps the jab. Aliskerov puts his left leg up to sort of like kick away. And Whittaker comes over the top with the right hand, rocks him, works him towards the cage, and then a beautiful uppercut to drop him. Ground and pound from there. Bobby Knuckles is back. Fuck everyone else. Get him a title shot. That man, get him a title shot. He's more deserving than Strickland, for me. And to be honest, he might be more deserving than Adesanya at this stage. So,
yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love the man, and yeah, it's another one of those Poirier, Santini, or now as we say, Ortega versus Diego Lopez. One of those matchups where it's like,
could be awkward.
This Saudi Arabia, Dagestani, damn. Khamzat's out there saying he gave him the best fight of his life. Sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? But yeah, Whittaker absolutely handled him. Love that, and yeah, he's got to get that rematch with Duplessis.
Yeah.
Right? It's got to happen for him in his career. And, of course, ultimately he wants to get that win over Adesanya. So,
I mean,
could have just jumped him.
I've seen the arguments that he beat Adesanya in the rematch. I don't have that personally with that. I thought it was
a close fight.
But the thing is, though, he came back from a knockout loss to Adesanya on the biggest stage possible. And then he came back and adjusted to the point where he made it so close that you could make an argument that he won. That shows the measure of him as a fighter. So this whole thing of like, Duplessis beat him comprehensively the first time. Yeah, so did Adesanya. And you saw the adjustments he made. Like, Whittaker's not a fool. He knows how to make adjustments. He's been in there with some... I mean, he fought Yoel Romero for 10 rounds. I mean, for goodness sake. Like, the man's been through the fire. So, I don't like this thing that people are maybe like saying like, would he deserve it? He had that really good performance against Paulo Costa earlier this year. Did this to Aliskerov. And by the way, if Khamzat had beaten him, Khamzat would have been getting a title shot. So, let's be fair here. But yeah, Whittaker.
So,
by the way, I knew.
Just
last thing, I knew Aliskerov was in trouble as soon as Whittaker walked out, and just the look on him, where he was just like, "I'm gonna absolutely destroy this man," where he's just not on my level. It was like when he beat Vettori. Like when he walked out against Vettori, it was different, but it was an air of like, this guy's not on my level. Like, I'm going to show you all. I'm going to show you.
So,
yeah, go on.
Khamzat Strickland.
Yeah.
And Whittaker fights the winner of DDP.
Well, let's talk about Khamzat. Is he ever going to fight?
It doesn't look good, does it?
I think his career's done, to be honest. I am if I'm like the UFC, I'd cut him at this stage. What's the financial benefit of having this guy? He's never going to fight in the US. He can't fight in the States. He can't fight in the States because of his links to Kadyrov, right? Is there that much of a benefit to having this guy? Or is there...
Is that official now?
Or is there financial... What's that?
Is it official that he can't fight?
It's not official, but it's all kind of... He's trying to get a different... passports that he's be able to fight in the US. They'd probably want him to fight in the US. Makhachev talked about this. I want to fight in the States more because I want to have that fan base. I want people to see me there in the States. And it's like, you know, Makhachev's standing is probably a lot higher now with American fans after that Poirier fight. So, you know, that is there. You do need that. You know, as much as you can be an international star, you probably do need to fight in the States if you're going to be a mega star. I wonder though if the UFC's probably got some like pressure from some financial backers from, you know, maybe from Russia or the Middle East that's like, no, we want to see this guy. So they have to keep him on. But yeah, if I was a promoter, I probably would just cut him at this stage. Just be like, listen, man, you're sick all the time. Get well, and then we'll have another look at you. Go fight in some other promotions, and you know you can come back. But the man's sick all the time. I mean, I really do think COVID just did such a number on him. Messed up his immune system. They said it was food poisoning and he was in the hospital.
Jesus.
You know, he had bronchitis as well, like maybe a year or so ago. I mean, remember this guy, like when he fought Gilbert Burns, it was just like this
unbelievable
beast.
Yeah.
And it's gone. Like I think we need to like, you know, it's got the Zabit thing of like, and even higher than Zabit, where it's like
it's higher than Zabit.
You know, where it's just like we'll never know. And it's just like we'll never know, but we kind of know.
Wow. I mean, he's still a young man, Joe.
I know, but I just don't see it. I don't foresee it happening. Unless he gets on this new drug testing policy where there isn't really any. And he can just take the maddest shit possible to recover. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
To watch him fight is like to see something amazing.
You
know. Like, even that Usman fight where what he did to Usman in that first round, where you're like, oh my god. And then the second and third happened and then you saw what the potential is, but
it had to be a 5-round fight.
Usman wins that.
It had to be a 5-round. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You might be right, and Strickland's never taken the fight anyway.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, there is something like inevitability to Strickland returning and Whittaker somehow missing out. I feel that.
What, Strickland getting the next title shot?
Yeah.
Even though he had a worse performance against Paulo Costa than Whittaker.
Yeah, but Joe, you just can't get away from this. He beat Izzy.
Yeah.
He beat Izzy, and it's just that's just it is what it is. I think he should be fighting Whittaker, really.
Yeah. And Adesanya wants that back. So, if he becomes champ against TDP. Right. Lastly, kind of actually the biggest news in relation to this card, but we saved it for last. So Conor McGregor pulls out. He's supposed to face Michael Chandler. Pulls out. The weird thing with the press conference, they didn't announce anything. Obviously, there's an injury, and they were like, "Can we keep this going?" You kind of got the idea it was an injury. You thought it was some PR thing where this guy's a mess and he's been in rehab and needs to...
I thought he was twitching so hard from his withdrawal symptoms that they just couldn't show him in front of a camera because he'd be all pasty and white. And he's given us some bad looks, Joe. Bad looks through the year. I thought he was probably in even worse shape. Obviously, people citing that Jake Gyllenhaal, Roadhouse promo video where
oh god, he was a mess.
He's just shaking away, fiddling with his nose.
Yeah, but it turned out it was actually a broken toe. His little toe, it was broken. Now, Tom, I've never broken my little toe. I've never fought in a cage. Don't intend to do either of those things. However, I get the impression you could probably still fight, and that a lot of people have said, you could still fight with that. And his thing is, I want you to see the best of me. I get the impression that actually that's not the injury, and that there's another one that's worse maybe, and he doesn't want to out it. It's just like, I'm happy to let them know it's little toe, but if they know it's my X or whatever,
the leg again.
The leg is fucked.
Mm.
I mean, again, it doesn't matter if the leg's fine. I'm telling Michael Chandler, that first minute I want 10 leg kicks. Like, just fuck everything else. I don't care if you get punched in the face. You're kicking him in the leg.
I mean, this whole thing about, like, he wants the fans to see the best of him, that just tells you that he's shot. Like, that just tells you that he is absolutely done mentally. No. Because no fight is going in there and giving the best of them. If you have that confidence in your ability, if you were the man that he was, if you have that aura, that confidence, then then you go in anyway. So that tells you everything you need to know about where his credentials are now. I
think he is shot anyway. I mean, think about it, his last significant win was Eddie Alvarez.
Of course he is. Of course he's shot. But it's like, we have to grade down all the time. Let's remember when he first scheduled to fight Poirier, we both picked him to win the first, their second fight. So, yeah. Conor McGregor. What do you?
It's weird.
What do you say?
It's weird to say that you can say what could have been about that man. It's weird, isn't it, to say that he could.
It just leaves such a bad taste in the mouth, though.
I kind of want him out of there. I don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of fans that want to see him. Obviously, they drew a massive gate, the sales of the tickets for the Chandler fight. And I get why Chandler's waiting for that fight, but like, still, it's. I never really want to see him again. I'm done. I mean, thing is, I'm most irritated about is that Yuri and Alex aren't getting a full camp. Not that I'm missing out on McGregor, although saying that, watching McGregor fight out his contract would be probably for the best. Then he can go off do some freak show fights that I'll never watch. I'm not going to watch him box Jake Paul. Are you serious? Come on. I'll watch Mike Perry box Jake Paul, which is booked. I can't wait for that. But yeah, you're right. I think he's washed up. He's shot.
Mentally as well. Mentally.
Yeah, definitely. Like mentally, physically.
Obviously, Chandler, fun as he is, he's limited. There are holes.
But I don't think that Chandler's like done. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that at a championship level he is, but like in terms of going out there and putting on a really good performance, and you're going to see the best version of Michael Chandler on that night, no matter what.
No. Michael Chandler is must-see TV. He's proven that. No, win or lose, it doesn't matter. No. What I mean is that like he's not at the top level. Like it's a kind of hand-picked matchup. Like Mike Chandler is beatable if you're good.
Are you excited for that fight for McGregor or for Chandler?
It's a freak show fight, really, isn't it? At 170, two.
Roided,
not tubby, but yeah, exactly. Two
roidy Magoons.
Square, small men. Like it's fighting way outside their weight class. So it's gonna just be.
It's gonna be mental.
An explosive fight. Yeah, it would be fun.
I just want it over with.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sick of the talk of it.
Ridiculous.
Just give it to me,
And then we can get some more Michael Chandler booked as well, and
Yeah. I mean, I think we're not going to see it anytime soon. I think, what is it? We got Leon Bilal next, then you got DDP Adesanya. I believe John Jones is for after that. So then maybe you look. And then
let me ask you.
O'Malley Marab. So maybe you're looking at October is Abu Dhabi. Then November is Madison Square Garden, and then you got maybe December would be the earliest they could book him.
Why not MSG?
No, why not? Yeah, end of the year, November, December.
I mean, let me just say, let's take it for granted that Conor fights at least one more time in the UFC.
Yeah.
What percentage chance would you put it that is going to be Michael Chandler? Like, what? Give me a percentage. Like, how likely it is to be Michael Chandler?
50.
But
then you've got all these other guys.
Mike's heart right there.
I mean, the other one I was thinking about is like Gaethje, Holloway.
There's a lot, Joe. We know there's a lot.
Is there?
There's a lot of fights. Yeah, there is.
I don't think there is. I think there's 3 or 4.
Leon.
He ain't fighting.
Islam.
He ain't fighting Leon. He ain't gonna fight Leon.
Topuria.
Topuria.
Volk at lightweight.
I love that. Oh, you know what? He would fight Volk because he'd be like, if he could beat him, he'd be like, oh, I beat who you think is the featherweight GOAT. I'm the real featherweight GOAT. Oh, shut up. Enough of you. Embarrassment. Anyway, should we go through our picks again? Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Our picks were, once again, I picked Ian Gary to beat Michael Venom Page by decision.
I've had Michael Venom Page by decision.
Yeah. What was it? Macy Chiasson versus Maya Bueno Silva. We both picked Maya Bueno Silva. I picked decision. Tom picked by submission. NC Smith, Roman Delise. We both picked Delise by knockout. Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. Tom's picked Ortega by submission. I've picked Lopez by decision. And in the main event, we both picked Alex Pereira to knock out Yuri Prochazka and to retain his light heavyweight title. Thank you so much for joining us. You can contact us. All the links below. Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks to everybody listening.
Yeah, and listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the fights. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.